Have you ever wondered why some people seem to shine the brightest after they've been broken? Why others seem to gather their strength from the very things that would tear most of us apart? If you've ever experienced deep pain, hardship, or emotional turmoil, you may have felt the stirring of something greater inside you, something that tells you your struggles aren't meaningless, but rather, they are preparing you for a role much bigger than you might have ever imagined. You are what is often called a wounded healer. In my own life, I can look back at moments that left me feeling shattered, unsure of myself, and wondering how I would ever make it through. Yet over time, I've come to understand that these wounds, the heartaches, the betrayals, the moments of deep despair, were not marks of defeat. They were the very things that shaped me, that allowed me to connect with others on a level I couldn't have dreamed of before. It's easy to think that healing is just about fixing the broken parts, but for the wounded healer, it's about turning those broken pieces into something beautiful. Being a wounded healer isn't about living in the past or continuing to carry that weight. It's about understanding that your pain has power, and it's that very power that makes you capable of healing others. This journey of self-discovery and transformation is not only life-altering for you, but for everyone you touch along the way. The idea of the wounded healer is ancient, one that has been passed down through generations, yet in today's world, it is more relevant than ever. So, what does it truly mean to be a wounded healer? It means understanding that your scars are not imperfections. They are the foundation of your strength. It means recognizing that your ability to heal others is rooted in the deep, sometimes painful, but ultimately transformative process of healing yourself. And it means embracing the fact that your journey of suffering has uniquely equipped you to be the guide, the light, the one who leads others out of the dark. As we explore the essence of the wounded healer's power, I invite you to look at your own story, not with regret or shame, but with pride and purpose. For it is through our wounds that we find our true calling. The essence of the wounded healer's power. Imagine walking into a room and immediately feeling a shift, a presence that somehow makes the atmosphere lighter, calmer, and filled with understanding. That is the essence of the wounded healer's power. It is not in loud speeches or grand gestures, but in the quiet, almost imperceptible energy that they radiate. You see, the wounded healer's power isn't something you can easily define, yet it's felt by everyone around them. I remember a moment in my life not long ago when I found myself sitting in a room full of people, all discussing various hardships they were facing. One by one, they shared their stories of pain, loss, betrayal, confusion, and as each person spoke, I could feel the weight of their emotions, but I also felt something else, hope. Hope that seemed to flow from one person to the next. I wasn't just listening, I was connecting. Deep inside me, I knew that the empathy I felt wasn't just sympathy, it was understanding. It was the kind of empathy that comes from having walked through the fire yourself and emerged with the wisdom of the flames. This is the power of the wounded healer. It is the ability to feel what others feel, not with a shallow sympathy, but with a deep understanding that comes from personal experience. It's the power to look into someone's eyes and know exactly what they're going through, even when they haven't said a word. It's the quiet assurance that no matter how dark their world may seem, you've been there too and you've survived. And if you can survive, so can they. The wounded healer's power isn't always flashy, but it is profound. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real, being present, and being willing to hold space for others as they walk their own healing path. When you, as a wounded healer, show up authentically, without pretense, without trying to fix or save others, you become a source of strength that others can tap into. They feel seen, they feel heard, and in that space, healing begins. It's in the quiet moments of connection, when you offer your presence, your understanding, and your compassion, that the true power of the wounded healer emerges. The spiritual alchemy of transformation. Have you ever thought of pain as something that can be transformed into something beautiful? It's hard to imagine, especially when we are deep in the midst of our struggles. I remember a time in my life when I felt completely broken. Everything I had worked for seemed to crumble before my eyes, and I was left questioning my worth, my path, and even my future. But it was in that moment of utter despair that I stumbled upon something incredible. The realization that pain, if you allow it, can be transmuted into power. It's like the alchemy of old, taking something base, like lead, and turning it into gold. In my own experience, pain became my teacher, my guide, and my foundation for growth. The very things I thought would destroy me ended up being the very things that shaped me into who I am today. The wounds we carry are not weaknesses. They are opportunities to heal, grow, and help others in ways we never thought possible. It's the spiritual alchemy of transformation. When you begin to look at your struggles not as obstacles, but as tools for personal evolution, something shifts. You stop being defined by your pain, and instead, you start to see it as a stepping stone, a necessary part of your journey that will ultimately lead to greater wisdom, strength, and purpose. Each time you overcome a challenge, you emerge stronger, more equipped to handle the next. But the true beauty of the wounded healer lies in their ability to help others do the same. You see, when you've experienced profound loss, betrayal, or heartbreak, you can't help but share the lessons you've learned along the way. You can't help but show others that, just as you have turned your pain into power, so can they. The transformation doesn't stop with you. It ripples outward. Your story becomes a beacon of hope, a guide for those who may be struggling to find their own path. As a wounded healer, your spiritual alchemy doesn't just change you, it changes the world around you. You become a catalyst for healing, a force that helps others find their own transformation through the lessons you've learned. The magic of spiritual alchemy is real, and it's happening every day in the lives of those who dare to look at their pain not as a burden, but as an opportunity to rise above and become something greater than they ever imagined. The hidden strength of the wounded healer. The strength of the wounded healer is often hidden beneath the surface, not because it isn't powerful, but because it doesn't seek attention. There is a quiet, unspoken strength that comes from having endured life's darkest moments and still standing firm. It is the strength of someone who has seen the worst of what life has to offer and has come through it not only unbroken but transformed. I've witnessed this strength in my own journey, and I've seen it in others. People who, on the outside, appear gentle, soft-spoken, and perhaps even vulnerable, but on the inside possess an unshakable resilience. I remember a time when everything seemed to be falling apart. I had just lost someone very close to me, and I didn't know how to pick up the pieces of my heart. But as I sat in my grief, I realized something remarkable. I wasn't broken beyond repair. In fact, I was stronger than I had ever been. My ability to carry my grief, to continue moving forward despite the pain, was not a sign of weakness. It was a testament to my resilience. This quiet strength is something that many wounded healers possess. They may not wear their strength on their sleeves, but it is there, deep within them, like a hidden treasure waiting to be discovered. The wounded healer doesn't need to boast about their strength because it speaks for itself. It's in the way they handle adversity with grace, the way they continue to love and give, even when it seems like they have nothing left to give. Their strength is in their ability to show up day after day, even when the world feels heavy. It's in their calmness in the face of chaos, their ability to comfort others even while they themselves are in pain. This strength, this quiet resilience, is what makes the wounded healer such a powerful force in the world. It's a strength that doesn't need to be seen to be felt. It's a strength that changes lives, even in the smallest moments. Because when you've been through the fire and come out the other side, you have the power to help others do the same. Strategic wisdom from a life of pain. There's a saying that experience is the best teacher, but for the wounded healer, it's not just any experience. It's the tough, painful ones that leave you changed forever. I remember a time when everything in my life seemed to be spiraling out of control. I was deep in personal turmoil, feeling lost, and unsure of what to do next. But in that moment of chaos, something shifted. I began to realize that every struggle, every hardship, every painful moment I'd endured had gifted me with a deep wisdom that no book or classroom could ever provide. It was the kind of wisdom that you don't gain through just successes, but through failure, through loss, through heartache. And that's when I understood the true power of strategic wisdom. Life's difficulties don't just shape us, they teach us how to navigate the world with greater foresight. What I've learned is that pain, while excruciating in the moment, becomes a well of wisdom that you can tap into when faced with challenges later on. In those dark moments, I began to ask myself questions that led to answers I never expected. What is this teaching me? How can I use this for my growth? And more importantly, how can I use this to help others? This is where strategic wisdom comes from. It's the ability to step back and see the bigger picture even when life feels overwhelming. I learned that every difficult situation was a puzzle, and by reflecting on my experiences, I could find the pieces to solve it. I realized that the lessons in my pain weren't random. They were shaping me, preparing me to face life's future challenges with wisdom that only comes from surviving hardship. Today, when I'm faced with difficult decisions, I don't panic. I don't immediately try to fix everything. Instead, I take a deep breath and tap into that well of strategic wisdom. I reflect on my past, learn from it, and use that knowledge to approach the situation with calm and clarity. When you've been through enough, you realize that your pain has equipped you with the tools to outsmart the challenges ahead. You don't just react, you respond strategically. And that is the gift of wisdom that a life of pain provides. It's not about avoiding pain, it's about using it to build a strategic, empowered life. This is how the wounded healer thrives, not just by surviving, but by thriving through the lessons pain has taught them. Authenticity in a world of facades. How often do we see people wearing masks? How often do we ourselves wear them, pretending to be someone we're not just to fit in or avoid judgment? I've been there. I spent many years pretending to be someone I wasn't, afraid of showing the world who I really was, afraid that my true self wasn't good enough. But the more I tried to fit into a mold that wasn't me, the more I felt like I was slowly losing myself. It wasn't until I went through my deepest struggles that I began to realize that the key to true strength wasn't in pretending, but in embracing my authenticity. I remember a turning point in my life when I finally decided to stop hiding. I had just come out of a difficult relationship, one that left me feeling lost and confused. I spent months trying to figure out who I was without the person I had been so deeply attached to. And it was during this time, in the quiet moments of reflection, that I realized I had been living my life for others. I had been trying to live up to expectations that weren't my own. I had been chasing a version of success that wasn't true to me. But the truth is, living a life of facades only leads to exhaustion, disconnection, and a deep sense of emptiness. When I finally began to embrace my true self, flaws and all, something extraordinary happened. I felt a sense of freedom I had never experienced before. I stopped pretending to be perfect and started embracing my humanity. I stopped apologizing for my emotions and allowed myself to feel fully. I started being real with people even when it was uncomfortable, and that's when I noticed the shift. Suddenly, people were drawn to me, not because I was perfect, but because I was real. Authenticity is magnetic. It invites real connection and fosters deeper, more meaningful relationships. I began to see that living authentically wasn't just about being honest with others, it was about being honest with myself. It was about accepting who I was in every moment, regardless of whether or not I met society's standards. The more I embraced my authenticity, the more I found that others did the same. When you live authentically, you give permission for others to do the same. You create a space where people feel safe enough to drop their masks and show up as they truly are. And that in itself is a powerful form of healing. In a world full of facades, authenticity is revolutionary. It's the antidote to the pressure to conform. It's the path to deep connection, self-acceptance, and ultimately to healing. If you're tired of wearing a mask, I encourage you to take it off. Embrace your true self, imperfections and all. You'll be amazed at how much lighter, freer, and more connected you'll feel when you let go of the facade and just be you. Setting boundaries as a form of self-respect. For most of my life, I struggled with saying no. I was always the one who would put others' needs before my own, afraid of disappointing people or being labeled as selfish. But what I didn't realize at the time was that this constant overextension was not only draining me, it was disrespecting myself. It took years of personal pain and reflection to understand that boundaries are not just a way to protect your energy. They are a vital form of self-respect. I remember a time when I was completely burnt out. I had been saying yes to every request, every invitation, every favor. I had become the go-to person for everyone else's needs, but I had forgotten to check in with my own. I was exhausted, emotionally depleted, and my relationships were starting to suffer because of it. It wasn't until I reached a breaking point that I realized the importance of setting boundaries. I realized that by constantly putting others first, I was neglecting the most important relationship I had, the one with myself. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you don't care about others. In fact, it's the opposite. By setting healthy boundaries, you are creating the space to care for yourself so that you can show up fully for others. It's about recognizing that your time, your energy, and your emotional well-being are just as important as anyone else's. I started small. I began to say no when I needed to, and I became more intentional about where I invested my time and energy. It was uncomfortable at first. Saying no didn't come naturally, and I was afraid of letting people down. But over time, I learned that boundaries aren't walls, they are gates. They allow only what nourishes you to enter while keeping the draining, toxic forces at bay. As I practiced setting boundaries, I started to notice a profound shift in my life. I felt more energized, more grounded, and more aligned with my true self. I also found that the people who truly respected me began to respect my boundaries too. Setting boundaries is not just a form of self-care, it's a form of self-respect. It's a way of saying, I am worthy of my time and energy. It's a way of showing the world that you are not a doormat. Your boundaries are sacred, and when you protect them, you protect your peace, your joy, and your ability to show up as the best version of yourself. If you're struggling to set boundaries, remember this: you are not selfish. You are not unkind. You are simply honoring yourself. And that is one of the most powerful forms of love you can offer to yourself and the world, becoming a catalyst for change. It's easy to look at the world and feel overwhelmed by all the suffering and injustice. We see the pain of others, the societal issues, the environmental crises, and it can feel like there's nothing we can do to make a difference. But what if I told you that change begins with you? What if I told you that your personal journey, your story, your ability to heal and transform can be the very thing that inspires others to do the same? I remember a time when I felt that sense of helplessness. I had gone through a personal struggle so deep that I thought I would never recover. But in the midst of that struggle, I realized something incredible. My healing wasn't just about me. It was about everyone I touched. It was about creating a ripple effect of change that would extend far beyond my own life. When we heal ourselves, we heal the world. That realization sparked something in me. I stopped focusing only on my own pain and started asking how I could use my journey to help others. I began sharing my story, not just for myself, but to inspire those who were struggling too. I started small, organizing community events, sharing resources, offering support to people going through similar challenges. The more I gave, the more I saw the transformation in others. I saw people who had been stuck in their pain begin to find hope. I saw them start to heal, and I realized that by becoming a catalyst for change in my own life, I was helping others do the same. Change isn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes, it's about being the living example of transformation. It's about showing others that no matter how hard life gets, there is always a way through it. You don't have to wait for someone else to start the movement. Be the change you want to see in the world. When you embrace your healing, when you rise above your struggles, you become a beacon of hope for others. You become a living, breathing example of what is possible when you take ownership of your pain and turn it into something beautiful. And that, my friends, is how we change the world, not with big speeches, but with small, consistent acts of love, healing, and transformation. You are the catalyst for change. You have the power to inspire, to uplift, and to transform. Your journey is not just your own. It is a path for others to follow. Intuitive guidance in the face of darkness. There are moments in life when the world seems to go dark. times when you feel lost, disconnected, or even overwhelmed by the weight of everything happening around you. I remember a period in my life when I was going through one of the toughest chapters I'd ever faced. The walls around me seemed to be closing in, and every step I took felt like it was in the wrong direction. It was during this time, when I thought I had no answers left, that I started to tap into something deeper inside of me. I began to sense things. It wasn't just a gut feeling. It was as if I could feel the unseen forces, the subtle shifts in energy, the way things were aligning or misaligning, without anyone having to say a word. It was as though I could feel the darkness that loomed in front of me before I even encountered it, and I began to navigate my path more confidently. I remember walking into a situation where something felt off. Everyone around me was acting like things were normal, but deep down I knew something wasn't right. I didn't have all the details, but I trusted that inner voice, that intuitive pull. I didn't need to see the entire picture to know that I had to walk away, and so I did. It's something I call intuitive guidance, the ability to sense things before they fully manifest. It's not always easy to trust, especially when you feel vulnerable, uncertain, or disconnected from the world. But this intuitive sense isn't just about being right all the time. It's about learning to listen to the deeper currents beneath the surface of life. It's the wounded healer's gift, the ability to feel the undercurrents of pain, of tension, of truth, even when others can't. Over time, I came to understand that this intuitive guidance was a result of everything I'd been through, the hardships, the losses, the moments of vulnerability. It wasn't just survival instinct anymore. It was a deeper connection to my own inner wisdom. And it was something that guided me, not just through personal struggles, but in helping others too. I could sense when a friend was in trouble, when someone needed a word of encouragement, when someone was too scared to speak their truth. I became attuned to the silent messages the universe was sending me, and with every step I took, I learned to trust that guidance more. It was in the darkest times of my life that I discovered the brilliance of this gift, and I began to realize that intuition isn't just some mystical thing reserved for a few special people. It's a gift that's available to us all. We all have the ability to tap into that deep knowing, that connection to something greater than ourselves, if we're willing to listen. So, when you find yourself standing in the dark, unsure of which way to go, trust your intuition. Trust the quiet voice inside you that knows what your eyes cannot yet see. It may not give you all the answers, but it will guide you through the uncertainty. And as you learn to trust it more, you'll find that the darkness becomes less daunting because you know you have an inner compass that can always find the way. Unseen influence, the quiet power. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the energy shift, even before anyone spoke? It's like an invisible force, a quiet power that moves through the air, influencing everything and everyone in its path. I've always been someone who is sensitive to energy, but it wasn't until I experienced profound loss and hardship that I began to understand how powerful this unseen influence can be. I'll never forget the day I sat in a room full of people, many of whom I didn't know well, yet somehow I felt like I was the one holding the space. It wasn't because I was louder or more confident, but because my presence, my energy was so in tune with the room. People were drawn to me without knowing why. They came to me with their stories, their pain, their questions. I didn't need to say much. All I had to do was be there to listen, to offer a quiet presence. And it was like the room itself began to shift toward healing. At first, I was surprised. I thought, why me? What power do I have? But over time, I realized that my power didn't come from anything visible. It didn't come from my words or actions. It came from a deeper place. It was the power of simply being authentic, of being present, of holding space for others. The quiet power that the wounded healer carries is often unseen, unnoticed by the casual observer, but it is one of the most profound forces at work. It doesn't require applause, recognition, or even acknowledgement. It simply exists, like a still, calm force that influences everything in its presence. This unseen influence isn't about controlling others or forcing change. It's about creating an environment where others feel safe enough to heal. It's the power of non-attachment, of letting go of the need to fix others and instead allowing them to feel supported in their journey. I've seen this in action countless times, whether it was a friend going through heartbreak or a colleague struggling with their own doubts. I didn't need to do much to help. I just needed to be there. My mere presence, my calmness, my ability to listen and empathize without judgment became a healing force. The unseen influence is the quiet power of the wounded healer, unspoken but deeply felt. It's in the energy we emit, the way we carry ourselves, and how we show up for others, even when we don't have all the answers. It's the power of being present in the moment, in the silence, and knowing that simply by being there, you are making a difference. So when you feel that pull to help, to be there for someone in need, don't underestimate the power of your quiet presence. It may not seem like much, but to someone who needs it, it's everything. The legacy of the wounded healer. There's something incredibly powerful about leaving a legacy. It's not about fame or recognition, but about the impact you have on the world, the ripple effect you create as you move through life. As I reflect on my own journey, I often think about what kind of legacy I want to leave behind. It's easy to get caught up in the idea of making a mark in a big way, doing something grand, being recognized for your efforts. But the legacy of the wounded healer is different. It's not about the applause or the spotlight. It's about the quiet, lasting impact you have on the lives of those around you. It's the way your healing ripples out and inspires others to heal, to grow, to change. I've always believed that the real measure of a person's legacy isn't in the things they accomplish, but in the lives they touch. And when I think about my own legacy, it's the moments of connection, the times when I helped someone see their own potential, that stand out the most. I remember a time when I was helping a friend through a difficult period. She was lost, unsure of her path, and felt like she would never find her way out of the darkness. I listened to her, shared my own struggles, and offered her what little wisdom I had. Over the years, I've seen her transform. She's become an advocate for mental health, helping countless others in their own journeys of healing. And when I look at her, I realize that the legacy I've left isn't just in the words I said, but in the way I showed up for her during her time of need. I became a part of her healing process, and now she's paying it forward in ways I never could have imagined. This is the essence of the wounded healer's legacy. It's not about the credit you receive, but about how you empower others to continue the work. You plant seeds of change, healing, and growth, and then step back, allowing those seeds to blossom in their own time. The legacy of the wounded healer is built on the foundation of compassion, authenticity, and the willingness to show up for others, even in their darkest moments. It's a quiet legacy, one that may not be visible to the world at large, but it's felt deeply by those who have been touched by your healing presence. So, as you continue your own journey, remember this: your legacy isn't about what you accomplish for yourself, but about the lives you impact and the healing you inspire. It's in the small, everyday acts of kindness and love that you leave a lasting mark on the world. Conclusion: the quiet power of the wounded healer. As we come to the end of this journey, I want to leave you with this one truth. The quiet power of the wounded healer is not only real, but it's transformative. It's easy to think that power comes from being loud, from standing in the spotlight, from making your voice heard. But the wounded healer teaches us that true power comes from within. It comes from healing yourself, from understanding your pain and turning it into something that can heal others. It comes from standing firm in the face of adversity and using your scars as badges of honor. The power of the wounded healer is not about being perfect. It's about being real. It's about showing up in the world as your true self, flaws and all, and using your experience to guide others who are on the same path. It's in the quiet moments of connection, the times when you simply listen, when you offer a kind word, or when you hold space for someone else's pain. It's the power of empathy, resilience, and intuition. The wounded healer's quiet power is not about forcing change. It's about being a living example of transformation. It's about leading with love and understanding, creating a ripple effect of healing that touches every life you come into contact with. As you move forward in your own journey, remember this: your pain does not define you, but how you transform that pain into power does. The world needs your quiet strength, your healing presence, and your wisdom. Don't underestimate the power you carry within you. Embrace it, use it, and share it with the world, because in doing so, you become a beacon of hope for others, lighting the way to healing, transformation, and peace. You are the wounded healer, and your quiet power is exactly what the world needs.